Welcome back to yet another episode of the Career Diet Podcast. I have been having so much fun recording the podcast episodes for you, and thank you so much for all the love that you've been showing the podcast. I've been receiving quite a few messages from you on LinkedIn and Instagram telling me that you've been tuning in, and this means the world to me. If you haven't already, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and make sure to send me the review so that you can be entered in the giveaway, which we're doing until the end of September. So I'm collecting all the reviews and then we'll pick two people who will receive a free coaching session with yours truly. So all you need to do is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, send it over, send it to me, share it on your social media, tag me so that I know that it's you. And that's really it. You can get a free career coaching session with me. My team and I have been working hard on improving the quality of the audio and the video. There's really so much that goes on into the production of podcasts, which is not something I really knew about. So we're learning together. And this is really just for you to see how sometimes you take action before things are perfect and before you're 100% ready. So sometimes it's messy action, but that's how you get better. That's how you improve. And it sounds to me that my team and I have finally figured out the audio piece, and it looks like the video quality is looking much better now. So if you prefer to watch the video, go ahead and head to my YouTube. So that's where we're now posting the video version of the podcast as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hello, my friend. Thank you for joining us. All right, so today's episode was inspired by my recent experience hiring for my own team. I recently had Chris join my team, and he really stood out to me when I was interviewing him. And I just really felt like I have to talk about this. I have to share with you five things that he did that really were special. And I am someone who's interviewed thousands of people. So it's not that easy to impress me. And some of the things that I will share with you today might be new to you. So make sure you take notes. And some of the things that I will talk about, you'll think, well, I've heard this before. Yet, most people don't actually do them, even though they're so important. They do make a big difference. Yet, most candidates don't actually follow these really easy, not time consuming tips that really make you stand out. And before we dive in, there's one more thing I wanted to share. Last night, I had my weekly group coaching session with my students inside my job search program, the Star Candidate. And to be honest, I'm still buzzing with excitement from everything that they have been sharing with me. And I felt like I should share those wins with you as well so that you can see what's possible for you as well. For example, Christina is an American living in Paris. How cool is that? And she is in her third round of interviews for a senior research manager role. And guess what? She got this interview by reaching out to the hiring manager directly. Now, she also applied directly to the company, and the ATS system, so the applicant tracking system, has rejected her. But she got an interview after she got rejected by reaching out to the team proactively. And this is something that my students and I talk about all the time, that it's not over until it's over, and you can still very much pursue the opportunity, even when you got rejected. And in fact, we actually go a step further. And something that I always talk to them about is your first instinct when you see a job posted is to think, who can I reach out to? You can still apply, but at the same time, who can I reach out to? And this is a perfect example of how well the strategy works. Now, we also had Rodrigo, who just joined the program 6 weeks ago. He's another expat. He is from Mexico. He's living in Canada, and he has two final round interviews this week for a data analytics role. Or roles rather, and we talked about how to use those 2 final round interviews to push both for the best offer. We also had Nishita, actually another expat living in Canada. She got a referral to the hiring manager for the role. So she's eyeing product marketing roles. And there is this dream company that she has been targeting for a while. And she's been listening to their podcasts and just really learning about them and meeting with people there. And this has been her dream for some time. So she got a connection to the person who is hiring right now. So she is killing it. And I am so excited for what's next for her. I'm just honestly so amazed with how international and diverse our community inside the Start Canada program is. I am so impressed by the major moves that my students are making, despite really the odds, quote unquote, because a lot of them are living abroad, a lot of them are job searching in a foreign language, a lot of them are making major level up type of moves, a lot of them are changing careers, and yet they have multiple interviews within a few weeks of proactive job search. They get interviews after they get rejected. This just honestly means everything to me. And this is always, Tuesday is always my favorite day of the week because I get to connect with my students and I get to hear their stories and their updates. So this is something that means the world to me and something that I'm very proud of and really is why I do what I do. Now, one final note before we dive into the episode. If you too are tired from endless applications and you want to finally land your dream job, I invite you to watch my free masterclass, The Dream Career, where I share the same 4-step strategy that all of my students inside the Start Canada program follow to make those major career moves, make them fast, and land those dream offers. Simply head to thecareerdiet.com/dream job or use the link in the show notes. All right, let's start with this episode. As I mentioned earlier, I have 5 very specific things prepared for you that Chris, my latest hire, did during the interview process that really stood out to me. But before we talk about that, I actually want to take a step back and talk to you a little bit about what goes on in the employer's minds when they have to hire. Something that I think a lot of job seekers don't think about or maybe don't realize is that employers don't actually like to hire. So my previous team member gave me a notice a couple of months ago at this point, and that was a very frustrating day for me because I really liked her. I really do like her still. I have spent a lot of time and energy training her. She's doing a great job and she has a lot of potential. So when she told me that she wants to pursue actually something completely different, that she got inspired to pursue pretty much a career change, I am happy for her and I can see how that is the right step for her. But at the same time, as an employer, I'm frustrated. I don't want to hire, I don't want to look for someone because it takes months realistically to put it all together, the whole process, to start interviewing, to find the right person, to get them up to speed. It takes months. And again, it's a lot of time and effort and realistically resources in terms of, investment and money. So employers don't like to hire. Something else to think about here is that for the hiring manager, looking for someone for the team is not their job. It means that they have a daily job, daily tasks, deliverables that they're working on. And now, on top of that, they are missing some manpower on their team. So they're already short staffed. And now they also need to look for someone. They need to find time on their calendar to think of the job description, to find candidates, or they would have a recruiter help them find candidates. But there's still that time that goes into, let's say, reviewing candidates. And then you need to interview them. There's just a lot of time that goes into it. All right. Next is, and that's what I experienced during this hiring process. And I remembered what it was like when I was hiring for the top employers in the country. And it's that employers get super excited when they meet a potential star candidate. So, in this specific example, when I first met with Chris for our first conversation, just 30 minutes, I immediately thought, ooh, this can be good. He can be the star candidate that I've been looking for. And I just get so excited. It still meant that I was still meeting other candidates. I still met Chris for a couple more conversations, a couple more interviews, but I was just so excited about this possibility that I have found the right candidate. So, again, I want for you to get inspired by this, to feel like, oh, yeah, I do have so much power in this process because employers don't like to hire. They're desperate to find the right person. You have a lot more power. That is really what my message to you is. And then finally, employers have really a pep in their step when they're about to hire you. When they found you, when they found the star candidate that you are, when they're in the final stages of interviewing, when they're about to give you an offer, or when they give you an offer, they're just thrilled for you to come on board. They cannot wait for you to start and to start solving their problems, really, and to take stuff away off of their plate. Okay. Again, they want you, they need you. Okay. That's really how I felt when I was going through this process and I knew that I was going to extend an offer to Chris. I remember thinking, I wonder why I'm so excited today. I would start my day and I just felt so good. I had this tap in my step. And then I thought, it's because I'm so excited about bringing this new person onto my team. Now, because it is time consuming and frustrating for employers to hire, when an employer realizes that, okay, we need to hire someone, here's what happens. And this is specifically what I did in this scenario. So when my previous team member told me that she wanted to do something else, that same day, what I did was I reached out to a few of my friends in the industry and told them that this is someone that I'm looking for. So I asked where they found their hires for that same role. I asked them if they know someone else who is looking for this type of role. I asked them, and the reason I actually asked them how they found the person that they have on their team is because I was wondering if the person who they hired knew someone who would be good for the same role. So I really just started with my own network. I also started thinking, if I personally already know someone who can be good for this role, I was thinking of my clients, I was thinking of people I used to work with. That's where an employer's mind immediately goes, is, who do I know already? Because if that is how you hire, and I've talked about this in some previous episodes of the Career Diet podcast, but if that's where you hire someone, you don't have to go through the full experience of posting the job, going through applications, and meeting people you've never met before, but rather it's someone proven, someone that you either already know or someone that you know and trust recommends. So ideally, that's what employers want, and that's how ideally they want to hire. So that's where my mind went the day I got the notice from my previous team member. And that's really how I got introduced to Chris. It was, I guess, a third degree connection. Someone that I know introduced me to their friend, and that friend knew Chris. So that's really how I got connected to him, and it worked out perfectly. And I'm very happy that that's someone who came recommended, someone who had that kind of personal connection with someone that I knew. So I love when hiring goes this way. And sure, I have a small team, but even when I hired for the top employers, that's how we hired. We would always start with, who do we have in our ecosystem? So, who do we know already? Then we would ask our previous hires for referrals. Then we would go on LinkedIn and look for people proactively, and only then we would post the job. So I often talk about networking and referrals, and that's why. It's just because it's so much easier and more effortless for the employer to hire this way. All right, now let's talk about 5 things that my newest hire did in the interview process that really stood out to me that you can use in your next interview as well. Number 1 is how you carry yourself. And here I'm talking about your energy. I'm talking about your composure, your confidence, whether you show me that you are present and you actually want to be here. And it might sound silly because most job seekers think, well, of course I want to be here. I took this interview. I was applying. I put a lot of effort to get this interview. Of course I want to be here. But you'd be surprised. For the employer, just the fact that you're here and you're interviewing doesn't mean that you want to be here. Because for me, the employer, I think that you're probably interviewing at multiple places and that you might just take any opportunity that you can. But I want for you to take my opportunity. I want for you to be excited to take the role that I have. So when someone is truly excited to be in the interview, it shows, it makes a difference. And not everyone is. I know it's surprising, but not everyone is. Another thing here that really helped me to see that confidence and composure. And again, this is so minor, but again, most people don't do it. Is Chris was looking me in the eyes. It was a virtual interview, but he was looking in the camera. So it felt like he was looking at me. So to me, again, that says confidence. A couple of other people that I interviewed for this role were looking down as I was talking to them. And I've met with them actually a couple of times. So for a couple of rounds of interviews, and I thought, okay, maybe the first time they're a little bit nervous and they're not as confident yet, so they just need a little bit more time. But no, that was a pattern. They were not looking straight at me. And again, that makes a difference. So my friend, your composure, your energy, how you carry yourself does make a difference. And here, for a lot of people, it's really practice that will help you because interviews are weird. It's not something that we do often, it's not something that we do a lot. In the course of our careers, we'll do a few dozen maybe interviews. So, of course, you're nervous. And there is, a few things on the line here when you're interviewing. So, it is normal to feel the nerves. And in fact, I want to offer you that some of the best artists and musicians in the world who tour and go on stage in front of thousands or tens of thousands of people still feel the nerves. But they go on and perform with the nerves. So the goal here is to learn to communicate this confidence and composure even when you are nervous. So that means that you need to practice when you're nervous. So if you're practicing by yourself at your desk, you probably are not nervous. So you're not really simulating the interview experience. And the easiest thing really to do that is to practice with someone in your life, even if it's your spouse or your roommate. The second there is someone in front of you and they ask you, tell me about yourself. All of a sudden you get nervous and you go, whoa, 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 wait, I was not ready. Let's do this again. So if you are interviewing right now, make sure that you practice with a real person. Okay, number two, what will make a difference is how prepared you are for this interview. And I know this is kind of a no-brainer, but what I'm talking about here is you doing your research about the team, the product, the company. And again, I bet a lot of you listening are thinking, well, duh, of course, Anna, of course I'm going to do the research. But once again, you'd be surprised how many people show up with really very little preparation, especially if you are actively job searching, if you are pursuing many opportunities, which is actually not something that I recommend to my students. My students are typically focused on very selected few companies that they really want to join. So your job search this way is very focused. There is no noise. You're not distracted. But most job seekers realistically are pursuing many opportunities. So when they show up for an interview, oftentimes they don't even know what they're interviewing for. And again, for the employer, it just means, well, probably don't really want this job. For me, the employer, it makes me question, well, how are you going to show up when you're here? Are you going to be very well prepared? Is this how you're going to be showing up when you're talking to clients? Or is it going to be different? How would I know if this is the first time I'm meeting you and you're not really prepared and you don't really know the basics of what we even do here? Something that one of my students in the Start Canada program did yesterday. So we did a practice for why you want to join this company. And a few people volunteered and answered that question for the opportunities that they're exploring. So this is something that we do about once a month. We do kind of interview practice together. And again, this is that experience that simulates the real interview experience because there are a few other people on the call. So you get a little bit uncomfortable. And when she talked about it, she mentioned something that stood out to her about the company when she heard the CEO on the podcast. So that really stood out to me. So that really tells me that, okay, you've been looking at this company for a while. You've been doing your research. You actually do want to work here. She also mentioned, hey, I've met with multiple people on the team. Here's what I've learned. This is the opportunity that really stands out to me. This is what I want. I want for you to think from the employer's perspective. When you meet with someone who has already met with multiple people on the team, who has done their research, who has listened to the podcast where you can learn about the company, just how excited you get about this person. They really want to join your team. They want to work with your product. So your preparation and your level of research makes a difference. Number 3 is listening. This one might be surprising to you, but something that Chris did really well during his interview process was when I would ask a question that was a little bit of a curveball or kind of required for him to reflect a little bit, he wouldn't jump to answer the question right away. He would pause, he would take a few seconds to think, and then he would start answering the question. So he really appeared as someone thoughtful, someone actually confident. Back to the very first point, someone confident because he didn't feel the pressure to have the answer ready right away. He had the confidence to pause and think. And that's what I really want from someone on my team, to not just jump and start saying things, but think about their answer, plan their answer, and then start communicating. Now, there is a fine line here. So, when you are asked questions like, tell me about yourself, or why are you interested in this opportunity? These type of questions you should be prepared for because the employer expects you to plan for those questions ahead of time because in most interviews you will be asked those questions. At the same time, questions that are a little bit unexpected or different or something you couldn't necessarily plan for, it's totally okay. And it's a good thing to say, that's a great question. Give me a moment to think of a good example, or just pause and take a couple of seconds to think of what you're going to say. So I know it's unexpected, but taking that pause and taking time to think is a good thing. Number 4, talking about your values and what's important to you. So in this scenario, I actually think Chris did this unconsciously, but it is something that I teach my students how to do consciously. When you talk about what you believe in, when you talk about what's important to you, I immediately notice that and I immediately start thinking, this is exactly what I believe in. There is such a good match here. I feel like you will be a really good fit. And the way to do it consciously, to add this in your answers, is by weaving these couple of sentences that I will share with you in just a second in your answers. So those specific sentences are, I am someone who is. I'm someone who believes that. The way I think about, and then insert here your function, for example, the way I think about marketing, or the way I think about my work is. Or it can even look like I view leadership as, or I view teamwork as. So this can be weaved into pretty much any answer, but where it works really well is, what are you looking for? Why specifically this role? Why this function? So why marketing, right? So when you talk about that, you can add that sentence, well, I'm someone who thinks about marketing as blank, right? And this is where you can talk about your vision and your values and what's important to you. This is also something that you can weave into some of the behavioral questions. So if a question is about teamwork or leadership or communication, you can weave in that one sentence. I view leadership, or to me, a great leader is someone who. And you add this one sentence, you talk about, again, your values, your vision, and you help the interviewer connect with you on that deeper level. So, Chris was someone who did this very well in his interview, and I really noticed it. And I felt like I really connected with him on that value level. And finally, number 5 is following up. I know you've heard about this many times that you should be following up after your interview. But once again, you'd be surprised how many people don't. In fact, I believe that most candidates don't follow up. So, your follow up note is an opportunity for you to reiterate that you listened in this interview. So, reiterating what you have learned about the role, the team, the opportunity, what you are excited about it, even more now that you have had this conversation, and adding a sentence or two about your specific experience that will help you thrive in this role. Now, ideally, it is something that you have already talked about in your interview. But what I always talk to my students about is that interviewers get distracted. They start thinking about lunch or about their next meeting. That happens all the time. So, the follow up note email is an opportunity for you to make sure that you get all of those points in that follow up note. So these were 5 things that really stood out to me in me interviewing my latest hire and the way he interviewed. So I am curious, out of the 5, which one you are doing already and which one or ones you are going to add to your next interview process. As always, simply send me a note on Instagram at The Career Diet or on my LinkedIn at Anna. Both are linked below in the show notes to make it easy for you. I love, love, love hearing your feedback, hearing your thoughts after you listen to the episodes. So if you have a minute, shoot me a note, and I will see you in the next episode.